Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thanks so much for being here. This is Keith Barrett, an intuitive evolutionary astrologer. And so, in this episode, I'm going to be covering the energies for October. So, some of the planetary movement and what I'm seeing with this movement in terms of what we can expect or how we can navigate the energies here through the month. So, just starting with some of the dates and some of the overall movement, and all of these are according to where I'm located here in the Pacific Northwest of the United States from a date perspective. So, the big thing right off the bat when I looked this month was the eclipse cycles. So, we have two eclipses that are taking place this month. We have one on October 14th, which is going to be a solar eclipse at 21 degrees Libra. And then on October 28th, we're going to have a partial lunar eclipse at 5 degrees Taurus. And so I am certainly going to do some more either YouTube video or a podcast regarding these two, because whenever you have an eclipse, there's the potential there for there to be changes. Think of eclipses as plutonic or scorpionic type energy where things can just come to the surface, or there can be situations that shift that you didn't see coming. And so I'm going to cover those in more depth, but I just wanted to mention them here right now. Then some of the other movement, we have October 4th, we have Mercury, which has been in Virgo, which will be going off into Libra. So it moves from its home sign of Virgo to Libra, which is all about relationships. And so it'll be in Libra until October 21st. And then it moves from Libra into the sign of Scorpio. Then October 8th, we have Venus, which has been hanging out in Leo. It's been there for quite a while because it went retrograde for a period of time in Leo. So it moves from Leo to the sign of Virgo. Then on October 10th, we have Pluto, which will be going direct. So Pluto has been retrograde and it now starts heading direct again. And so Pluto is one of those outer planets from an EA perspective. It correlates to soul desires or unconscious security. So it starts moving and making its way towards the sign of Aquarius. And it's going to be heading into Aquarius in January of next year. You can think of this symbolically with Pluto being retrograde and now coming out of retrograde. It's starting to make its way into new territory. So it's the same thing energetically for you personally. From a soul's perspective, I've seen this period of time, these last few months to wrap up 2023 as laying a foundation or getting things cleaned up in your reality. And so Pluto now moving forward says, okay, now it's the time to start ramping up and really getting things in place for next year. And so that's a big one with Pluto going direct. Then the day after, on October 11th, we have the lower octave symbol of Pluto Mars, which will be heading into Scorpio. So Mars was in Libra and it heads off into Scorpio on October 11th. Then on October 23rd, we have the Sun, which moves from the sign of Libra into Scorpio. So the Sun will join Mercury and Mars in Scorpio towards the end of the month. So October is going to be a continuation of Libra energy, which was started in September, certainly with the Sun and Mars and Mercury making their way through Libra. Libra is all about externalizing your experience, taking your experience out in relationship to other people. So with symbols like the Sun and Mars and Mercury going through Libra, the Sun is simply shining a spotlight on relationships. And you can think of the Sun as needing to shining a spotlight on that area of your life, or navigating two relationships that actually bring you energy. Think of having the Sun in Libra in your natal chart. You would certainly derive a lot of your experience in this lifetime through the lens of relating to other people. So that's the type of energy that's present during this time frame here in October. And then if you add the archetypes of Mars and Mercury to that, Mars is taking action. Mars is the ruler of Aries. So you have, if you think of this as an energy band, and the opposite end of the energy band from Libra is Aries. And now you have the ruler of Aries in the sign of Libra. With Mars and Libra, that can be symbolic of forming new connections in relationships. It's Mars, think of Mars as the lower octave of Pluto. So it's desires coming from your soul. It's things that you want to experience in this lifetime. And so with Mars transiting Libra and being closely connected with the Sun and Mercury, we'll cover Mercury, but let's just stay with Mars. With Mars, think of all of the different possibilities with Mars energy. Mars energy is instinctual. It wants to form a connection in relationships. Mars also needs absolute independence. So if there are relationships that you've been participating in where you feel restricted or you don't feel like you have the independence you need, or your energy is being split, which could be a representative of Mars being in Libra, that's going to be highlighted during this period of time, especially towards the end of October. And I'll get into that a little bit deeper. Then we have the archetype of Mercury, and Mercury is all about communication. Mercury is all about listening to the opinions of others. It's all about learning. It's all about different experiences and experiencing things from a different perspective. And when I say things, Mercury is in Libra, so that's all about, again, relationships. So Mercury in Libra is having conversations, understanding things, making sense of things. And it ties into Venus, and certainly Venus is all over this energy because Venus rules Libra. And so Venus being in the sign of Leo for the first half of the month and then making its way into Virgo. So Venus enters the Virgo part of the chart, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So we have this combination of Virgo, Libra, and then towards the end of the month, we step into Scorpio. So Virgo is, what I'm getting here is I'm getting drawn to the polarity and the energy band here, which the opposite end of Virgo is Pisces. So with Venus going into Virgo, I see this energy symbolized as making things tangible. If you think about this energy band, Pisces is one where, yes, it's spiritual and it's being connected to energies that are beyond the five senses, but it also can be a little bit unclear or fuzzy, or there may be some distortions or illusions as part of Pisces energy. When you think of the opposite end of that with Virgo, Virgo is an earth sign, so it's grounded. It's actually making sense of things. It's understanding the details. It's making adjustments. And so Venus is going to be heading off into that territory and connecting to Mercury going through Libra, then into Scorpio. So figuring things out when it comes to relationships or understanding things at a deeper level. I also get the opportunity to connect to soul tribe members. If you think of Pisces energy is all about that. So when I see Venus going into Virgo, and then I see towards the end of the month at varying degrees for the Sun, Mars, and Mercury heading into Scorpio, think of Scorpio energy. I always describe Scorpio energy, especially coming off the heels of Libra, is taking the Libra stuff to a new level. So think of Libra and seventh house type territory as participating in relationships. And you can think of those relationships as work relationships. You can think of coworkers. You can think of getting to know people in a relationship. It's not family members. It's not people that you're really deeply connected with. It's more the relationships prior to you getting there. So think of Scorpio as taking the Libra relationship energy and ramping it up a notch, or ramping it up many notches can be a representation of Scorpio energy. So think of relationships in your life, and now this energy towards the end of October, all heading into Scorpio land, which is we are going to go deeper. So that could be things like, just using examples of, let's move in together, or we're going to get engaged, or we're going to exchange sexual energy. Or it could be from a business perspective where, hey, it could even be getting a new job and committing your energy to that job, or an investment where I'm going to take my money, which is resources. You're going to take your money and you're going to invest it in an opportunity or into a person, or that type of energy is Scorpio land. Scorpio land is also understanding things at a much deeper level. It's the psychologist of the zodiac. It's the area of the chart where you ask the deeper questions. Why is this happening? Or what's the deeper meaning? So if you take the Libra energy and now bring it into Scorpio, it could certainly be representative of participating in relationships and having there be some kind of a shift or some kind of awareness that comes to you where you're like, okay, well, why was that? Or why did that happen? I want to understand the deeper meaning of it. Could definitely be Scorpio territory. What I'm getting here too is a commitment to communication. If you think of the archetypes of the Sun, Mars, and Mercury, I want to be able to understand. I want to be able to communicate. I want to be able to understand your perspective, be able to listen to it, then offer my perspective so that we can orient ourselves appropriately in this relationship. Certainly, when you have all that energy in Scorpio and then it gets tied back to Venus and Virgo, that's certainly making adjustments. It's understanding things on a deeper level. Certainly, this energy, when I look at it in Scorpio, is symbolic of making a commitment and getting closer to somebody. That's more the overarching energy I'm getting. It's like taking the Libra energy and ramping it up a few notches. And obviously, for the collective, that's going to it's going to take different forms and fashions for everyone. That could be symbolic, especially with Mars in the mix, of having disagreements or going deep into things, or power dynamics can certainly be part of that energy. I'm not getting as much of that here in this energy read. More so, I'm getting a higher level frequency, which is more commitment and going deeper with people in relationships and having meaningful conversations to be able to get to the bottom of experiences, or to be able to get to the bottom of things that have taken place. Or what I'm getting to is just instantly having a connection with somebody and it going to Scorpio land, it getting to a place where you quickly want to exchange energy with them. Think of connecting with somebody that your souls have had other experiences in other lifetimes. And so you meet somebody and it's like, oh, I know you. Even though maybe I haven't met you in this lifetime yet, it's the souls kind of recognize each other and you form a deep relationship. Especially when you consider the modern ruler of Scorpio is Pluto, and Pluto will be going direct in this month. That adds another layering to this, where it's like, where I keep talking about laying this foundation. Well, laying a foundation may require you to connect with other people, to exchange energy. So I would say the best way to prepare for this month is, if there are relationships where there's changes, or there's new relationships, or you're trying to understand the meaning of current relationships, communication is going to be the key. And when you talk about Mercury and Scorpio from a communication standpoint, it's absolute honesty is how you navigate this energy, which means if things come up for you where you feel like, I'm not safe to express this, or I'm not sure how the other person's going to react, or I feel this thing, but within me, I feel like I shouldn't feel it. So there's a conflict that's coming up within me. It's going to be super important to be able to own it within yourself, exactly what you're feeling, and be able to first express it to yourself and say, okay, I'm feeling this. There has to be a reason for it. And I need to acknowledge that I am feeling this and get comfortable just starting in that place. And then the next level in Scorpio energy is even if you feel fear that comes up where you're like, I'm feeling this thing, or I need to express myself, I need to articulate this thing in a relationship in a certain way, but it brings up some fear or it brings up anxiety, or this conversation could shift the foundation that I have built for myself. To be able to recognize that too and be able to see it from the perspective of, okay, I recognize that I feel fear here or there's some uncertainty, but I know that authenticity is the way. And I have to be able to own what I'm feeling and be able to express it to people or another person or whoever you're relating to, because that's the way through. Repressing it, not being able to articulate it, allowing your boundaries to be crossed, which could be symbolic of Mars in Scorpio, is not an energy that's going to be productive for you. It's going to come out in distorted ways. It's going to potentially harm you or harm somebody else. And so the way through is authenticity. And even depending on the relationship and how close you are in the relationship, to be able to even express that to the other person and say, hey, I'm feeling this thing. I'm not sure why. It generates fear for me. Even this conversation generates fear for me. But I do value you. I value this relationship. I also need to be authentic and real with what I'm feeling. So let's have this conversation. And then knowing that when you get to that place and you're able to do that, that whatever the other person's response is going to orient you to the right place within the relationship. So maybe the person comes back and they say to you, wow, okay, that's interesting, or wow, I need to take some time here, but let's discuss it. Let's figure this out. Scorpio territory. Or maybe they come back and they get triggered and they project onto you and they make you feel bad in some way. Well, then you know that they cannot go there with you. So that's your feedback to know that at least at that point in time when you had the conversation, they were not willing to go there or they weren't capable of going there with you. It may be something you said triggered something within them that they have to work on for themselves. And that could mean that there's a separation in the relationship, which is another part of the symbolism with Mars is needing to separate. It doesn't necessarily mean it needs to get to that level. It could, but it could mean that just at that point in time, when you delivered the message, that it wasn't received well. It was triggering for the other person. Maybe they have some time to cool down and they can come back and you can have an even keeled conversation where you're both in a neutral place and you can talk about it objectively. That would not be on you, though. That would be the other person would need to get to that place. So for you, it's just staying true and authentic to what you feel and express it, and then allow the other person to have their own response to it, and then you can navigate yourself appropriately. The other layer I'll add here is towards, I'd say, looking at this chart, around the last week of October, all of this energy, the Sun, Mars, and Mercury, starts to oppose Jupiter in Taurus. And Jupiter is still retrograde. We still have a lot of planets in retrograde, although the gas pedal is starting to get pressed here with Pluto coming out of retrograde. But what I'm getting here symbolically with this energy is Jupiter is the expander. It's gaining knowledge. It's understanding things from a different perspective or a higher level. It's all about gaining wisdom. And it is in the sign of Taurus, which is opposite of Scorpio. And Taurus is the inner side of Venus. So Taurus is your values, how you value yourself, how you're able to express yourself, how you're able to find joy. And so, what I'm getting here with this opposition of this energy, especially being opposed to Jupiter, is a harmonious aspect where you are able to gain more of yourself, Jupiter and Taurus, through going deep in relationships. And that could be any of the relationships that I just stated, where things go very deep because there's a soul connection, or you've been engaged in a relationship and now it's time to take it to a new level, or you've been engaged in relationships and things haven't been quite right. And so now you have these deep scorpionic type conversations, which may be difficult to have those, but at the end of the day, it's expanding your self-worth. It's expanding your ability to open up to more energy for yourself, Jupiter and Taurus, to enjoy the life experience that we have and to enjoy your, maybe this separates you from relationships that impacted you negatively, which you aren't really so much aware of, because it's hard when you're in the middle of relationships to understand the dynamics going on because you're in it. And so when you separate Mars from relationships and then you gain some space, then you get an objective view and are able to see some of the things in the relationship that you were not able to see while you were in it. And so ultimately, it's Jupiter and Taurus. It's expanding your sense of self-worth. And I'll just wrap up here by saying we do have the eclipses. And like I said, I am going to do a deeper read on both of these, but we have a solar eclipse in Libra. Again, relationships, scorpionic type energy in relationships. And then we have a lunar eclipse in Taurus, which I just talked about Taurus. So if you just think of those energies, Libra and Taurus, it's all about relationships, but it's also expanding joy, is what I'm getting. Expanding enjoyment of the five senses, enjoying other people's energy, enjoying your own energy, which is a representation of Taurus. Becoming empowered, becoming more of who you are, gaining more of yourself is the energy of this Jupiter and Taurus. And certainly with the lunar eclipse in Taurus, that's preparing us for the next solar eclipse, which usually happens in the same sign, but it's actually going to take place in Aries, which what I'm getting there is it's really important for you to honor yourself and honor your own needs. So as always, I appreciate your energy. Thanks so much for listening and being here, and we will talk again in another episode. Thanks so much and have a great October.